My guest today on Around and About is Dr. Jim Osborne.
It's kind of an interesting story, and if you look at fate in life, I was feeling that this foundation was destined to be developed. In 2000, I moved to Chattanooga, and I'd been racing cars in amateur series, and my brother and I got together and we decided we were going to start racing cars professionally. In doing that, instead of having sponsors pay to put their name on our car, we decided to pick nonprofit foundations to raise money for them. So we traveled around the country with this professional series, doing programs for different nonprofits, and one of them was a nonprofit dealing with children with cancer. Southern Living magazine heard about what we were doing, and in 2004 sent a photographer out to one of our events at Road Atlanta to do a story on our team, and we were raising money for kids with cancer. The photographer was a spiky-haired blonde with a nose ring, and we started dating, and we got married. And we continued to travel around the country and visit children's hospitals and do programs for kids with cancer. And in 2006, we had our son Hatch on August 15th. Austin Hatcher Osborne seemed perfect. I mean, he had no problems. He was a great kid who slept well and very even-tempered. And we had our annual cancer fundraiser in Atlanta centered around this race called the Petit Le Mans. We got home on a Monday, and he started getting fussy that week. Over the weekend, he started having some neurologic changes. His left eye deviated. He stopped using his arm. I mean, it happened rapidly. We brought him into the hospital, and within 24 hours, they found brain tumors and tumors throughout his spinal cord, and they were doubling rapidly, like every day, and within 11 days, he passed away. Out of that, we said, you know what? We've seen a deficit in care for families dealing with pediatric cancer, and we set out on a mission to sort of fill that gap. And the Austin Hatcher Foundation for Pediatric Cancer, also known as the Austin Hatcher Foundation for a Carefree Childhood, was sort of established to meet some of the families' needs as well as the children with cancer.
Children and their families coping with cancer have a lot to deal with. Confronting family issues and helping the cancer patients and their siblings is part of the mission of the Austin Hatcher Foundation.
80% of children now survive pediatric cancer. The oncology treatment, chemotherapy and radiation, it's about 20 times the dose they give adults, and it leaves the children a lot of times with learning deficits, reading and math skill deficits, visual deficits. There's also emotional deficits tied to the treatment and the diagnosis, and then the family turmoil. So the Austin Hatcher Foundation, we put together, part of our programming is called Hatch's House of Hope. And through Hatches, we'll provide the testing and then the remediation to help the child with cancer compensate for those deficits. Now, that said, the rest of the family matters to us quite a bit. The seemingly unaffected siblings, 60-80% of those children will have learning deficits or emotional deficits associated with family dysfunction, and they need the similar testing and the similar programs to help them be competitive in school. We also know that the parents have their own issues. A lot of times it's a two-income family. One of them is having to quit their job and go take care of the sick child. That in itself creates some internal turmoil between the parents. Having a chronically ill child can be very testing for you. And so the foundation works to help with stress management skills, parenting skills, marriage skills, financial skills. So some of the local banks, employees who do financial counseling will kind of help the families navigate through the time when 25% of their income is going to copays. We put together a program to help the families restore hope, health, and happiness to their lives. And one of the things we say is help write happy endings everywhere.
In addition to working with local families, the foundation hopes to create a database of important information that may help children facing cancer everywhere.
We're creating a longitudinal study. In other words, we'll start collecting information off the families now as we move forward and have more Hatch's House of Hopes open across the country. We'll be able to put this information together and say, if Susie is diagnosed at age 3 with leukemia and she has this amount of treatment of this kind of agent, we can suspect that they'll have these deficits develop. And so not only are we providing service to the family, but we're actually creating longitudinal studies which will help us down the road now that we'll be able to anticipate and maybe work with the oncologist to help reduce some of the side effects of the chemo by helping even reduce maybe the amount that's given. The interesting thing, too, is that 1 in 1,000 adults right now are pediatric cancer survivors. Now, if you look at those numbers, that was when the survival rate was only 20%. Now survival rate's 80%. So we're already developing a whole new population of adults that are pediatric cancer survivors and are living with these deficits that really haven't been addressed.
There are special education programs in every school, but many of the children dealing with cancer may not be included in these programs because their treatment keeps them out of school. Others may simply not qualify yet because their learning deficits may have just begun to manifest.
It's interesting, the Americans with Disability Act qualified children with cancer as disabled, and they're eligible for some of these testing through the government to help them detect these and then provide services for them. However, because of the cost of each test, they've now had to implement barriers to get the testing they need. They have to go through several steps of failure before they reach that point. We want to shorten that course and intervene preventively. So, for example, we would like to test the families at the time of diagnosis, see what deficits are there, and start the remediation now, and then catalog that as we go, test them, continue to test them, and provide them the services so that instead of getting way behind, they might get a little bit behind and then catch up way ahead by having these services to help.
The Austin Hatcher Foundation is already providing some services, and the grand opening of Hatch's House of Hope will be September 18th at 10 a.m.
This is Hatch's Home. It's a place for families to come and get services. It is located in Erlanger Medical Mall. We want it to be like somebody's home. We want it to be Hatch's home. So you come in and it's an environment that's friendly to your needs and gives you a feeling of hope and help. We don't want it to be a sterile doctor's office, and the services there really are to help the families make it through this tough time. This is a new program. There's nothing like this, not in Memphis or Atlanta or LA. What we foresee is that we will follow the children through their early 20s when they're no longer children. But we also know that there's some of the adults out there that may need testing and service, so we'll be providing service for them as well. We really want to cover a combined effort and make sure that if you have a documented diagnosis of a pediatric cancer or you in your family, that we provide those services.
There are plans to open Hatch's House of Hope in many hospitals across the country, as well as plans for more family programs.
Our goal down the road to do is create a camp for families here. It's called Camp Tuponi, and Tuponi is an Indian word for child of importance, and it kind of brings about our whole feeling in the foundation that everyone is someone's child and should have happiness return to their life.
Hatch's House of Hope will open in September. You can support the Austin Hatcher Foundation by participating in Shopping for a Cause beginning this weekend and continuing through the end of September. Area merchants will be donating a portion of the proceeds from your purchases to the foundation. You can learn more about this and more programs on the web at hatcherfoundation.org.